I'm going to be talking about my life story.
About your crazy childhood.
About my crazy childhood. Yes, and even crazier events that followed.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Indeed. Yes.
All right, Cheri. Cheri, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Yep, from Anaheim, California. Good
Orange
old
County?
Orange County, yep.
Tell me about your family growing up. You had mom and dad?
Yes. So I'm the oldest of three. I have two brothers. My father, who was clinically diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and my mom, who was an anxious attachment, codependent. So it made the perfect concoction for for a very dysfunctional household.
What's it like having a dad with narcissistic personality disorder?
Confusing, painful.
He was diagnosed?
Yes. It was very odd how it happened. I was actually brought into the therapy session. My mom didn't really have support. And once I turned 12, I became that support for her. And I would come to these sessions with her, not really understanding that that's not normal. And I'm not really sure why they allowed me to go. But I remember my dad agreeing to being a part of this, which isn't typical now, knowing what I know about NPD and all that. It's not typical for them to go, but my dad did, and I think that it was because he was trying to prove that he was fine, he was healthy, and it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out in his favor. So that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, it was an interesting upbringing because there was this odd dichotomy of love and hate. There were wonderful things about my dad, a lot of things that I've learned and a lot of good memories. And then there were really, really painful situations. I think a lot of people can agree to this, and this is what causes that trauma bond. So there would be moments where my dad would be the coolest person. You could talk to him about anything, or, he would love to play games and be active, and we would always go and play miniature golf. And then all of a sudden, his mood would switch, and all of a sudden I was the point of criticism, and he would rip you to shreds with words and expectations. And this just continued in a way where, you start becoming so unsettled in your own home. I watched it happen with my mom, and then I became the source of ridicule and attack. So,
or the target.
Yeah, I became the target, yes. So I guess if I were to go back to how it was with my parents, as a child, I watched this type of relationship only knowing that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, this is normal love. This is how it's supposed to be. Their relationship was tumultuous, constant fighting. It wasn't a matter of if it was going to happen today, it was a matter of how bad is it going to get and how long is it going to last. Every single day was a fight. Every single day was a anxious feeling that brewed inside of me and my brothers. Sometimes we'd hear bodies hitting cabinets and things throwing across the room. I would oftentimes see my mom sobbing in her room. And so I started morphing into this caretaker role. I was trying to be there for her. So as I got older and I became more aware, that's when my dad's narcissistic attacks changed. And to also add to this, when I was 8 years old, I started singing, and my dad realized that I had disability. And so that started a whole journey of, stage parent. So as I get older and I start being defiant on training and I start questioning how he's treating my mom, he starts laying down the hammer harder on me. From the outside, it probably seemed like everything was okay for people that didn't really know what's going on, which is another challenging thing with covert abuse is people think, well, I don't see any bruises on you. I don't see you sobbing every single day, so you must be fine. But the reality is that we cope in the best way that we know how. And if that's all we know in life, we assume that there's some normalcy to that. So I'm thinking, well, my dad's really hard on me. It must be because he loves me. Maybe I'm just overreacting. I was always called dramatic, overreacting, all of this. So I started adopting that belief. So as I'm becoming older and more defiant, my dad gets more difficult to be around. It's around 13, after one of my, I guess, last belt beatings for something that I did. I can't even remember. I upset my mom. She gives him the call, and then he comes home, and that's what happens. There is no talk afterwards. There's no, this is why this is happening. It was just, you could hear the belt as he's coming down the hall, as he whips the leather, pulling it from side to side. And so we always knew it was coming, but that was the last time. I was about 13 years old, and that's the last time that I can remember. And when I think about the things that happened in my life after that point, I realized that I was a child that was desperate to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved, which put me in positions of being far too vulnerable. And for predators that are seeking out somebody who's vulnerable, who has a need that they can meet, or so it seems to be that way, I'm the perfect candidate for that. So I remember that situation occurring and thinking to myself, like, I can't live like this. This is hell. Some time passed, and a friend of mine asked if I wanted to go and visit her parent that lived in a different state. And I was just begging to get out. I was surprised that my dad actually let me. So, I'm still 13. This is a few months after that. And I'm like, let's go. I'm getting out of the house. This is amazing. And so we go on this trip, and her dad has like someone that works for him. I can't remember exactly who it was, but this person was about 21, 22 years old. And he is hanging around us. And I'm not noticing that this is some awkward thing. This is kind of inappropriate. And he invites us to go and hang out with him at a party he's having. And her dad worked odd hours, and I remember him working evenings. And so we go, and he's giving us wine coolers, this 21, 22-year-old guy, wine coolers, and being really sweet. Well, to somebody who has been criticized and is like constantly the point of, just always being attacked verbally, I'm thinking, wow, this is so nice to get complimentary words and attention. So the compliments continue. The drinks continue. I'm 13. And my friend falls asleep on the couch. Everyone else has left, and it's just me. I had no idea what the intention of this person was, but I loved the attention. And the next thing I know, his face is pressed up against mine. And he's saying all of these things like I had no idea that, her friend would be this way, and just all of this BS. We exchange information, and to make a long story a little bit shorter, 3 weeks later, he comes to California. And he said, I'd love to take you to Disneyland. That sounds great. I'd love to go to Disneyland. I'm 13. I grew up in very modest surroundings. We did not have a lot of money. That wasn't something that we would do all the time unless we had family or friends that had access that could get us in. So I'm thinking, that's great. He's like, well, why don't you stay the night and we'll go in the morning. We'll have a great time. Again, still not registering. Even though the advances were made weeks prior, I'm still thinking in my mind, this person really thinks I'm great. Like, it feels so nice to be appreciated or seen. And so I take the bus from my house, and my dad had to have been gone for work or something, because there's no way that he would have let me go. But it was just my mom, and so that was easier to get away with. I take the bus. I go to the location of where he's at, which is next to Disneyland, this hotel that's near there. And I can feel in my gut uneasiness, even then. knowing that it wasn't right. But I'm thinking, oh, it's just because I wasn't honest with them. So I get there, and as I'm walking up these steps to get to the room, I hear a voice, my voice, something, just like, don't go. And what do? Of course, I'm 13. I knock on the door. And he opens it, and there's a wine cooler that's pushed in my face. And I'm pulled in. And when we are faced with situations that are unsafe, we do the whole fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I fawned. I think the second that I was pulled in and the door was shut, I knew this doesn't feel right. This feels really bad. This feels like now alarms are going off. But everything happened in a way where it's like, I feel like time just kind of blended into the next, because all of a sudden I'm sitting on the bed. All of a sudden clothes are being taken off. All of a sudden a body is pressed on top of me firmly where I can't even move if I wanted to. And before I know it, it's done. And I'm wondering what is done, what just happened. I don't even really understand. The next thing that's said is by him stating something about, you've always wanted to go to Australia, didn't you? I was doing like a school project. And he's like, well, we can go there. We can move. And now, as an adult, I realize, a sense of clarity of like, look what I did. And I may get in trouble for this. And then he gets up, gets changed, and leaves. Mumbles something out the door as he's walking out the door about, I need to go grab something. That next day, I end up falling asleep, and I wake up. And that next day, time is just kind of moving, but it's weird, right? You are feeling discombobulated. You don't feel like yourself. And so we go, but I end up finding a way to leave. But I tell this story because it's one of many examples. The pain of my childhood and all of the neglect and the verbal abuse and the fighting between my parents and just feeling as though I was never enough, it paved a path for decisions that were made into my adulthood. In hindsight, I look back and I'm like, I'm grateful because it's built resilience and it's allowed me to be of service to others that have gone through certain things. But when I was in it, I realized it really starts there with everything that I endured. So after that, I struggled with shame. I felt like it was my fault. It took me 15 years to even talk about it, especially when we have this misunderstanding of sexual abuse and what that means and how hard it is for victims to come forward and talk about it. So I struggled with the shame, which meant that I was, trying to mask it and cope with it. I was drinking. As I'm getting older, I'm hanging around people that like to party. And I'm hanging around people that they don't care. They don't care what happens to me or anything like that. So I'm putting myself in really challenging situations. Situations where a friend will leave me at a party, and then all of a sudden I'm getting so drowsy and tired. And I wake up around people I don't know. I also, because of my dad's pressure to be a singer, I auditioned for a girls group, and I was in LA a lot. And there were a lot of, at first it seemed like everything was normal and it was very professional. We were singing and doing our gigs and stuff. And then our managers would take us to producers' houses, and then we wouldn't know where they are. And what started off as being this professional experience, once again, here we are being put in really uncomfortable, scary positions. We feel a hand on our leg or an arm around our neck, pulling us in a direction, telling us that if we want to make it, they could help us out. There were so many situations where I'm surprised that we were even able to get out of it. There was one situation, we were at a producer's house, and for whatever reason, they separated us to record. They had a couple of studios in the house. And a couple of people leave, they lock the door, and I'm sitting next to somebody who's one of the producers. And I remember him putting his hand on my leg and squeezing firmly, indicating like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got to get out of this. And I make up an excuse of like, oh, I need to use the restroom really quick and I'll come right back. I had to play into this part of like, yeah, I'm all for this. Just constant survival mode. And I did get out of that situation, and I remember running through the maze of this mansion to get out the front door and sobbing and just realizing at that point, after this had happened so many times, realizing at this point my managers don't have our back. Like, nobody's giving a shit. So I try to still go through like the LA thing. I'm auditioning. I have friends that are introducing me to people, and it's the same thing. There's a party for networking. It wasn't a party for networking. I went to the Playboy Mansion twice under the guise of it being networking. I didn't know. At this point, I'm 18. And so I'm going, but they're also telling me you need to dress a certain way. I always left at 12:30 a.m. because I lived so far. But I always think to myself, what if I had never left that early? What if I had stayed longer? So there were a lot of moments that I was like, okay, I felt like I really missed a catastrophe here. But so, I'm trying to make it in the business, and I realize this, I'm not going to like do this in order to like make it. And this is not even my dream. This is my dad's. I moved to Montana, and the significance with that is it was the first time I was really alone. I lived on my own, and I had to kind of face those demons. The alcohol, the drinking was getting worse. I was now starting to get like triggered by things that I hadn't been dealing with before. The assault that happened when I was 13 is starting to pop up. And so one night after working, I worked at a restaurant, and I remember having this pasta dish and it being so salty that I felt ill. And I remember being able to go to the bathroom and purge and thinking to myself, this is way too easy. That started an almost 2-decade-long battle with bulimia. And that was something that it was really hard to talk about with people too. I felt a lot of shame associated with it. And it was like, the best way that I could describe it is, it's like your worst best friend. And I know that sounds really weird, but it's your own little secret. It's something that you feel like you have control over. And you do feel this euphoric feeling afterwards. It's an addictive feeling.
The purging?
Yeah.
Going to the bathroom and making yourself throw up?
Yeah. It released the tension and the stress in that moment and allowed you to feel a sense of calm. And it's so odd to even say that, but that's exactly how it felt. And so it was like my own friend, because in that moment, it was something I could rely on. It was easing the stress and the discomfort that I was feeling. And it became this battle, though, because it was slowly killing me.
Was it more? Was there more to it than just trying to be skinny? It was something else, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it actually had nothing to do with being skinny. I was so used to having to be on a regimen for performing and such. So there's a lot of working out or like having to eat healthy and learning those habits. But this was different. This was like, even though it initially started because I ate salty food and just really felt ill. I had worked all day, inhaled my food, and my tummy just was not able to handle it. So it was easy for it to happen. I didn't have to do anything. But I realized how I felt immediately afterwards. It was like, for some reason, I paid more attention to the sensation afterwards and how it made me feel. And I think also because it was a very stressful time and a lot of things were surfacing. So in that moment, it just felt like an equalizer. I just felt calm. But I also realized how easy it was to do it. So it became not even about losing any weight or becoming skinny. It was like, I need to feel okay right now. And there were certainly times where it was associated with weight, but it was more so about calming those nerves. Now, that was like my secret that I kept for a while. But, I moved back from Montana. My mom is having surgery for trigeminal neuralgia. So I leave there, I come home, and I meet my now ex-husband. And that was a whirlwind because we were best friends in so many ways. We got along really well in so many ways. But his dark secret was infidelity. Like, not once, not twice. Like, we're talking over 2 decades, multiple, many, tons. And I was in denial for a very long time, and I didn't know how to even respond to it, because when we have to accept what's going on, we have to do something about it. Whether that means doing something emotionally or I have to physically leave, I wasn't ready to do that. And 2015 was one of the biggest affairs that came forward. And it was the biggest reminder of like my mom's experience with my dad repeating itself. So it's like I ended up taking over that role, what I said that I'd never experienced, or what I realized like, oh, I never want that type of life. They fight all the time, or my dad's cheating on mom all the time. It literally became my reality. And in 2015 is when I had to actually accept it. It had been happening well before that, but I was like, it's fine. I'm just gonna focus on the kids. But that period of time shook me to the core. I actually reached out to the mistress, which is not recommended. But her response was, thinking back now, I don't expect anything different, but she wasn't like pleasant about it. She definitely kind of rubbed it in my face and made sure that I knew that the things that he was saying, and clearly enjoyed seeing me squirm and be disturbed and in pain over it. I stopped eating. So now I'm transitioning from having the bulimia. I became anorexic. I did not eat. I couldn't. And for 6 months, I'm thinking, oh, this is okay. Like, I'm feeling myself a little bit when I needed it the most, right? I'm feeling so awful about what he had done that I'm thinking in my unhealed version of self that, oh, well, I just need to be skinnier. I need to be this. I need to be that. So I'm thinking, this is fine. I'm going through the motions. And then 6 months after, shit hits the fan. I'm losing my hair. I'm getting sick. My skin is like gaunt, dark circles under my eyes. I'm just dying just faster. Much faster than how I was before with the ailments that I was dealing with bulimia. And so I got to a point where I needed to like wake up and start like fighting for myself. And it's been a really hard journey. So from 2015 until 2021, there was a lot of ups and downs. And I got to a point at the end, and I remember my psychiatrist telling me, you're enabling at this point. Like, it's all right, you figure it out. Like, you're gonna have to figure it out. There was no other way. You can bring, what do they say? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I was at that point where I needed to wake up and realize certain things. But at the end, I started enabling. I started encouraging him to engage and do whatever he wanted, because I figured, well, at least if I know about it, I feel less I feel like I don't know, like I have some control. Not knowing about it meant I was the fool. I was what the mistresses were laughing about. But knowing about it could be like, oh yeah, I gave permission. That's just where my mind was at. And so I encouraged him to, and he did, which also opened doors to other experiences, just going to like nudist resorts and pool parties and stuff like that.
So you encouraged the infidelity?
Yeah. Yes. And it
wasn't really in your heart. It was just something you were...
No, it was not in my heart. And I'm actually like very much not comfortable engaging in those situations. I would always have to be drinking. And I could see that I guess it was like a desperate, toxic attempt to make it work under different guidelines, under different rules. And it was awful. It wasn't what I wanted. And for those that do want that, beautiful, that's wonderful. But in my situation with him and how there was no trust and no foundation of healthy connection, it was the worst thing that could have happened. But I opened that. The door was opened, or at least the door was there. I think he had brought it up. And I was like, let me open it for you. Let's go. And it was me enabling the narcissist. And I don't use that word lightly or loosely. I know that a lot of people feel like it's overused, or people can use it for any small reason. So I definitely use it based on what I know educationally and personally. You got to fit criteria to have the traits or actual NPD. But at this point, it was a behavioral pattern, and that was just who he was at that point. So in 2021, I hadn't seen my dad in over a year. I had cut ties. It just got really bad. There are so many bits to this story, and I know I'm kind of like just saying what I can, but there's just so many pieces to this puzzle. But for about a year, I had said to my dad, I can't have you around my kids. I can't have you around me. It's too triggering. You're behaving in a way that's inappropriate, meaning like he would be yelling or just doing his typical manipulative stuff. And my kids, as they were getting older, it was getting confusing to them. And I've done everything in my power to protect them from that. So we hadn't talked in a year, and I get a call that my dad's in the hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, he's fine. Like, he's dramatic. That's what I was always called. So here I am doing it to him. He's dramatic. And then I get a call 2 days later. I think you should consider coming and seeing your dad. He went in for chest pain, and then they ended up intubating him like 4 days later. And so by the time that I got there with my brothers, my dad his oxygen level is dropping fast. He's not looking well, not doing well. Everything is just going downhill. And that, to me, was like the catalyst for everything else to come, for the big changes that were to come. And the purpose of me really telling my story is that I want people to know that you can experience horrible things, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. We have to just alchemize it. We have to transmute that pain into something beautiful, into a purpose. And my dad's death, in some weird way, ignited life in me. It woke me up. It made me realize, what am I doing here? What's the purpose of all of this? So the last night that I saw my dad, I just took that time and I mean, leading up to it, I was like, I had to be rushed to the emergency room because I started hyperventilating, and it was just a mess. But anyways, So he passes, and he had done such a good job of slandering my name to family that I don't even talk to any of my family anymore, which is also a very typical thing of narcissists. And
The abuse from your father was mostly verbal?
yes, it was mostly verbal. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would leave me messages about how horrible I am as a mother, how horrible I am as a person. The last performance that he ever came to that I was aware of, I've heard that he showed up, but I never interacted with him or knew that he was there. But one of the shows he came to was this beautiful cabaret show, and there was a beautiful band behind me, and it was just me and a microphone, and I'm really proud of it. And I knew it. I said to myself afterwards, why the hell did you ask him? But I said, what did you think? And the second that left my mouth, I regretted it, because he said, do you really want to know? And he just reamed me in front of people passing by and everything.
How old were you?
36. Yeah. And
But that was his MO to
oh yeah.
to always react that way?
Yes. And there are quite a few people that I've seen throughout the years, like friends of mine, fellow performers, that have seen how he would berate me after performances. I mean, one time after my high school performance, right in front of everybody at my school, that was his thing. He felt like he was helping me, but it was deteriorating my confidence.
Yeah, it's a parent's or partner's job to always build up the other's self-worth, self-esteem.
Right.
If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job.
Right. Exactly. So it was like I was pulling myself out of the trenches after his death, because now I have to be like, oh, I got to face all this shit. I got to face this stuff, and then I got to figure out, like, why did I even allow all of this stuff to happen? And so it led me on a path of just continuing education and building a business where I can help educate and protect other people. I mean, I have a daughter. I have 3 boys too. And I tell them all the time, like, these are the manipulative tactics that you look out for. These are the things that you need to protect yourself from. Like, think like a psycho, don't become one. Learn from their playbook. We have to, because there are far too many situations. After divorcing, I did date a little bit. Not a good idea. Even though I felt like I was ready to maybe dip my toe in, no. Because the 2 individuals that I was open to connecting with, I'm like, okay, this is like a cruel joke. They were worse. Like, we're talking now there's like physical abuse happening. There's substance abuse happening. And I did leave a part out. I had forgotten, because there's just so much, that there was a period of time where I did dabble in cocaine, because that was around. It was offered. It was during the COVID time. And it's just, you start getting around these, certain people that are encouraging that. So I always tell people, like, we have to pay attention to the company that we keep. When we're at our most vulnerable, that's when the vultures come out. That's when people are like, I can get something from you, and you are none the wiser at this point. And it's not to put us down when we're in that position at all, because we don't know any better. We're doing our best. But it's something to be aware of. I quickly got out of it, but the fact that I was even in it for that period of time, it makes you realize, like, you could spiral down that. But anyway, so individuals that I ended up connecting with afterwards were, they would be, going off their head on substances I wouldn't even know that they were on, and then have complete rage or outbursts. And so once I realized all of this, I just cut it out, and I'm like, nope, we're on a healing journey. So, but yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that trauma is complicated. It's not just one size fits all. It's not black or white. It is a multitude of things. It varies. It's on a spectrum. How people respond to trauma varies. Some people might laugh it off. Some people might cry. Some people might recluse. Some people might engage with tons of people. We have this idea that it's just one way, but also to understand that things like manipulation and narcissistic behaviors or psychopathic behaviors, they also range. And I always tell people, ask the why behind a person's behavior and intention. Why? If they want to buy you a drink, that's nice, but, or, just ask the why behind things. It gives you a moment to like pause and figure out if there's something else going on. Yeah.
And what are you doing now?
So I'm a trauma-informed coach. So I'm accredited and certified, and I also work with victims. So I'm a victim advocate.
You seem to understand the topic very well.
Yeah, I dove into it. So that's how I ended up transmuting my pain into purpose.
That's great.
Is just taking in as much education as possible, learning as much as I could, because I wanted to not only understand it more myself, I wanted to protect my children, and I wanted to protect anyone that was interested. I think that these tactics, manipulators are so good at what they do. And oftentimes you'll hear people say, well, they were so nice. I would never expect them to be like that.
Well, see, the thing about everyone, but especially people like your dad, there are good qualities.
Yes.
There are great qualities.
Yeah.
Along with these bad or terrible qualities.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're all bad. Oh, you're a narcissist, you're evil, and you're just to be avoided. There's some really great things about them too.
Yeah. There is, and that's what makes it so complicated. Yeah. And when people say, well, just leave, why don't victims just leave? I'm like, that sounds, and in theory, sounds great. You could just pack your bags, get up, and walk out the door. It is, more often than not, it is the most difficult and oftentimes impossible thing to do. You're talking about people that have been over years conditioned to not only live in this high and low, but chemically they've learned to feed off of it. This is what they've known. So that little dopamine hit when kindness and goodness happens, they're constantly seeking it. They're constantly seeking it, and then you have those difficult, painful moments. You just keep hoping that next high comes. And these relationships are somewhat like a drug. And that's what manipulators do. They're fantastic at really building that rapport with you and gaining that trust initially. And that way, when they hurt you, hey, that kindness is coming right back to you. There were so many moments that I had with my dad that were wonderful. And that's why people were really confused. Well, if he abused you, how could you love him? How could you even want to grieve him? Like, because there were moments that I saw him, like who he maybe truly is if he didn't have that mental illness, if he didn't have that personality disorder, that might be who he would be all the time. Perfection is a facade. No one can be perfect. So people having faults is no problem. But when people are deliberately behaving in ways that hurt you, and this behavior becomes a pattern, this is when people really have to take a moment and ask, what is this doing to my psyche? What is this doing to my health? My cortisol, my health at that time, 2021, 22, was at its worst. And it's because my body was just releasing cortisol like it's going out of style. And for anybody that's interested in, the quick info on that, our body signals when we're dealing with stress, and our hypothalamus says, hey, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. I'm going to pass this to the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland sends it to the adrenals, and the adrenal gland says, cortisol, do your thing. And cortisol works like a alarm system. So this alarm system is making sure it's alerting us and every part of our body to be on guard. That means it's telling our digestion, hey, let's slow that down because we need to conserve energy. So when people are like, I'm dealing with all the stress, I can't understand why I'm not losing weight and I'm being really healthy. Well, your metabolism's slowed. Your hormones are imbalanced. There's all of these things that are occurring. And so our cortisol is on guard, and then we have adrenaline that's working too. And that's why people are dealing with adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue. But when we're constantly in a state of stress, it's being an output constantly, and it's just wreaking havoc on our body. So I try to talk about this a lot because I want people to know that this is what's happening, and you can do certain things to heal and to get better and to regulate your body. But I mean, trauma even causes temporary brain damage. It's reversible, temporary.
And a lot of us will find partners that kind of mimic or mirror the personalities of these kind of parents.
Right. Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what happened with me.
Yeah.
There was a comfort in there. We are comforted by what we know.
You're trying to heal it, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I tried to save my dad. I tried to be the ideal daughter that he would want. Oh, you want me to sing and perform? Okay. You want me to make you food and I don't know, do that, whatever it is. How can I? And you also learn that love is conditional. Through this process, you learn, well, I just got to be better in order to get him to love me more. And you seek that. If it's not healed, you seek that in partners. And that's exactly what I did. If I just give him more, I grew up in a very sexist household. It was very much the women serve the men and the men sit down. I mean, my grandmother literally said, men are to sit down and play cards. You need to serve them. And she said, and when you get married, and I'm a teenager at this point, when you get married, you don't ever say no to sex. You make sure that your husband is happy. Otherwise, he'll go be happy somewhere else. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is how I have to be. I need to give more of myself constantly. I need to betray myself, essentially, and give to someone else in order to please them, to accommodate them, to do my purpose in life. That's where my mind was. So what did I do? I did exactly that. I did whatever was needed to maintain happiness. It didn't change how he acted. He still went out and had affairs, but that was what was indoctrinated in me. So not only was I trying to help my dad, I was also being taught that women had a certain place and men had a certain place. But now this is going with me into adulthood. It's paving a path into just complete destruction because now I'm taking that with me into this adult world where I'm trying to build a life on thorns, not on a smooth foundation. It's something that I talk to my kids about in an age-appropriate way, where I let them know that you do not abide by these rules. You don't have to. You're not just this. You're whatever you want to be, But it's complicated, but you're absolutely right. If we haven't healed that trauma, we seek it in every person we come in contact with romantically. And it's one of the reasons why those cycles continue. And
you can go to a party and see 75 people at that party, and you'll know the one person that's sitting in the corner who will treat you the way your dad did.
Oh, yeah. There are certain things when I think back to it, I'm like, oh, there were certain behaviors, personality traits that signaled that familiarity. And it was like, oh, this is the one.
This is the one.
And when we can identify this or be aware of what we would normally seek in someone, it can help protect us. I wasn't aware for a very long time that I was attracted to and attracting a certain type of person, which is what perpetuates these cycles of toxicity. I was seeking someone very similar to my dad because the things that I loved about my dad was, my dad was very charismatic. He was very funny. He was very social. He was very smart about, business and about street smarts. And there were a lot of things that my dad taught me. I found a journal that he wrote in, actually to my kids, with like little sayings that were just, I don't know, they're so simple but so true. Like, set your own alarm clock and pack your own parachute. Just little things. Like, I don't know if that's from something that he got it from something else or if he just wrote it himself, but just little sayings, little tidbits. And so I would seek out people that had a certain type of flair about them, some charisma, the intellect. The thing is, that's tricky, is that people that manipulate with ill intent, they tend to be very good with social settings and very charismatic and very personable. They know how to tap into your psyche. They know how to tap into your emotional needs. They know how to figure out what you're missing.
And on your end, it's a really exciting attraction.
Yeah.
It's much more exciting than maybe somebody who's healthier for you.
Yes.
Which is a calmer kind of love.
Right. That's how it used to be. So the pre what would you call it?
Healing.
Pre-healing, it felt like it was like a major boot camp. I went through like hibernation, and they call it like dark night of the soul. You basically go down to the core of who you are and expose everything. You deal with all of the emotions that you don't want to deal with, the things that really make you uncomfortable, and that's what I had to do. But before that, absolutely. I wanted a little bit of chaos, clearly. I enjoyed it. That's what I was used to.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it was exciting. I saw, the chaos in my home, and then normalcy was like, this feels weird. I'm going to sit here and just relax.
Anything other than that feels boring.
Yeah. So I think that is absolutely why I welcomed toxic patterns and chaos and enabling. And it had to take my dad passing for me to finally be like, what am I doing? What's the point of all of this? And it's interesting too, because having children, it's like I was able to compartmentalize. So with my kids, I was one way. I mean, I kept myself busy with all of the things that we were doing, arts and crafts and play dates and all that. And I absolutely loved all of that. And it kept me very busy. But then there was this other side of me that was like, okay, chaos, where are you? Like that chaos that's organized chaos. It's fine. It's kids being kids, having fun. And I love that because I was able to give to them what I didn't have as a kid. That's a whole different thing. But on the relationship side, it was a shit show. But with all that are a lot of lessons learned, like realizing the patterns of wanting toxicity, of maybe being around people that could create chaos. Me dabbling in substances and such. That was me testing the waters of like chaos. Okay, am I going to get in the water? Am I going to do this? Now I'm somebody who has gone through so much healing, and healing is lifelong. It's not linear. It is forever and always, and it's a practice to be practiced every single day. And I'm sure many people that have been healing or whether they're been sober and on that healing journey and whatnot, they'll attest to having to be very diligent about your healing journey, about staying on track. But the person I am today is somebody who I feel like I see things so differently now. I understand myself better. I understand the patterns, but now I can see things in other people, which is probably why I'm not going to date for a very, very, very long time. But there's a lot of healing that needs to go on in the world. That's basically what I'm saying.
You're not dating at all?
No.
How long has that been going on?
Years, a couple of years.
Good
yeah.
for you.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm happy. I am so blessed and thankful for my kids and the time that I get with them. They're getting older, and I have a son who's going off to college, and they're just, I'm so grateful that I could give them the love and attention and time that I didn't get. And so aside from work and the wonderful people that I work with, my kids, I'm good. I'm tapped out. But maybe one day, but it's not the focus. And I think that's also one thing, is that we tend to think that somebody will complete us. And I think it's important to know that somebody can enhance our life and make it beautiful, but they don't make it.
That's right.
Right? So when we can understand that, it may help some people to realize, like, your happiness and the love that you desire is sitting within you. I had to go through a lot of hate talk and moments of despair. I mean, there were a few times I did not want to exist. I had to go through all of that to get to the point where I look in the mirror and say, I love you. You're amazing. You're doing awesome. I remember one of my therapy sessions, my therapist was like, can you look in the mirror and just say something nice about yourself? This was so many years ago. And I was like, no, No, I literally cannot. And it's making me feel weird to do this now. So if we could just stop. To go from that to where I am now, for me, is huge. I want everyone to get to that point, because if I can go through such horrible experiences and feeling like what's the point of even being here, to where I'm at now, I want others to know that it's possible to be like that too, to feel that way, to get through those dark times. But I think part of that is acknowledging that the hurt happened and facing it, healing it, and being okay with it, not being filled with shame or guilt. The three core values of human behavior is fear, shame, and love. So where is this deriving from? Am I acting out of love, or am I acting out of fear or shame? And so that's another thing to keep in the forefront of the mind, because it will help us navigate a little easier.
Wonderful talk.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cheri.
Thank you for having me.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.